All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 142.
Jesus.
Yeah, and this week, boy, are you going to get one hell of an episode. You're getting Tyler, who's back, triumphant return, and he's about, what do you say, 5 or 6 shots deep?
Yeah, well, like I had a dark and stormy, and then you make it with 2 shots,
Uh
and
huh.
then after the first one, I was like, the second one, I don't need a measure, and it was significantly sharper
Yeah.
and more brutal than the first one. So I'm gonna say 5, maybe 6.
All right. And you're getting Thomas, who is coming hopefully on the downswing of a stomach flu that he's vomited 6 times in the past 24 hours and shit his pants, which, maybe stick around at the end of the podcast and you can hear some shit discussions that were going on. But anyway, we're here today to talk about Pearl from 2022, which is the prequel to X that came out 2022, the same year. Apparently, they were filmed at the same time, but Pearl was kept secret. Um, I think when we did the episode for X, I mentioned how apparently they would show the trailer for Pearl after X was over in some theaters and stuff. So some people would see this movie or see X and then immediately be like, "Oh, hey, here comes this other movie that's coming out in a couple months. You can go watch." But anyway, Pearl that we've been wanting to
Yeah,
check out. What?
I was gonna say it was a weird release because we kept seeing it, and then we're like, all right, we need to watch it, and then it just wouldn't be out, and we had to wait. I
Yeah,
want to say a crazy amount of time for it to come out, and then it came out. Just we're on to other things. So,
yeah.
but
But yeah, Pearl. We were wanting to watch it for a while. If you remember with X, I don't remember what Tyler gave it, but he really liked it. I gave it a 6. I was like, it's cool. It's fine. I didn't love it. A lot of people really loved X, and I feel the same way with this one. A lot of people really love it. I think it's cool. I'm gonna give it a 6, the same score I gave X. This one's a lot more artsy than X, which to be fair, X was like a sleazy, you know, 70s, 80s slasher movie. Um, and this one is not. The tone is a lot more different, I think, than in X. Uh, but it was cool. I liked it. So there you go, Tyler. What are you
I
gonna
have
give
no
this one?
clue how to rate this movie.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put it out there. Maybe slight spoiler warning. The first 45 minutes, I was like, this is the worst shit I've ever watched.
Uh huh.
That last 45 minutes, like, I'll let you know when we're going through at what part I was like, oh. But, like, it gets really good. It's like worth the wait. I almost want to say, I know it's a prequel that tells the story, but, like, if they weren't connected, because I was expecting more X style
Yeah.
when it wasn't X style at all.
No.
And like, yeah, so it's if you go in with an open mind, not thinking of the other movie at all, because you don't really need to see it. Like it makes sense later, but like
Yeah.
it's not like required watching. Like it was really good. Like so, I'm gonna give it a 7, even though it wasted like 30 minutes of my life. But
Yeah, you wasted the first 30 minutes of your life and then the rest made up for it.
yeah, I mean, and I'm not even gonna get into the story. There's like a weird scene towards the end of the movie where like the camera style changes and everything changes, and it's like it's only for like 5 minutes,
If it's
and
the part I think you're talking about, it's my favorite part of the movie.
it's really good. And I was like, it's like, what am I seeing here? Like
Yeah.
it caught me so off guard that I had to make sure that I didn't click something, because that it almost goes into like a VR view without the VR. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's weird because you see the two. I only know that from Pornhub. full confession, but because when you click on the wrong video, you're like, why am I seeing two of them? But anyway,
No, not me.
yeah, ever. But yeah, and it just goes wild. So, but I love it. I want to say this is the exact opposite of a Disney princess story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's considered
Well,
anti-hero or what, but
I don't know. I mean, I definitely don't think she's an anti-hero.
well, yeah, right, because she's
She's
definitely
straight up villain.
no,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
misunderstood.
yeah.
So,
Well,
but
I mean, there's
like,
a lot of is Wizard of Oz isn't Disney, right? But there's a lot of Wizard of Oz shit in this movie.
yeah, I mean, I can see that. If someone said something about like the comparisons, and I would totally listen, right? Like I would
Mm-hmm.
read it and whatever, but I mean, there's obviously like certain elements. So yeah. Now that you mentioned, I might have to watch it. God damn it!
All
Like the
right.
first time I rented a movie instead of like buying it, right?
Yeah.
And now that I want to watch it again, it's like, oh well, you get to rent it again.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well,
So
I own X on Prime because for some reason it was like the same amount of money to buy it than it was to rent it. So I just bought it. This one I just rented. It was not the same amount of money to buy it than it
this
was
movie
to
was
rent.
free for me to rent. I don't know if I just have a bunch of credits because I do the Amazon Day delivery thing.
I don't know.
It cost me zero. It was supposed to be $5.99. It cost me
Yeah,
nothing. So I was like, bet, okay.
it cost me $5.99. Son of a
Well worth it.
bitch.
I would spend six monies. I would have spent the 20 to see it in theater though. Like it was good.
Yeah. All right.
So
Well, hey, spoiler warning for Pearl. If you haven't seen it, we're gonna ruin everything about it. So, you've been warned. First off, can we just talk about uh, and compared to X, which I kind of remember X being like a grimy looking movie. The colors in this movie are all over the place. Like the first shot in this movie when we come out of the barn and we see like the house and stuff. Also, I'm pretty sure in X like that house is all run down and like the paint's chipped off and everything. And this one it's all fresh and new. But the colors in this movie are amazing. And I read supposedly since this movie takes place in 1918, they wanted originally they were gonna do a black and white movie, and then A24 apparently nixed it, and we're like, no, the Lighthouse already kind of took that, and so then they were like, all right, well we'll do the complete opposite, and we'll just make everything really vibrant and colorful. Yeah, I don't know how a black and white version of this movie, because a lot of this movie, my favorite parts are like the colors and shit, and how vibrant everything is.
so think about it. All right, let me swing this one past you. All right.
Okay.
Say I don't know how to say this without spoiler. Spoiler, we already did spoiler.
We already did spoiler.
So up to the point to where shit gets real. What if it was black and white all the way up to that point, and then they hit you with the vibrant colors?
Yeah, they
That
go.
would have been so much better, right? And then
They go
they have
full
that,
on Wizard of Oz.
yeah, and then they do the different like camera style and everything. Like it'd be so juxtaposition, whatever. It'd be so weird. Like it would be, I don't know, might have been the greatest thing ever in cinema. But, maybe that's a little far,
Yeah.
but I can see black and white completely because, like, yeah. I mean, fucking colorblind. But
Yeah, it's all the same to him.
yeah. Why do y'all get cake and I don't?
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
Anyways, yeah, the opening shot, we come out of the barn, we see the house that we were acquainted with in X, the first one, but like I said, this time it's a lot more vibrant and it's not as run down looking as it was in X. The camera moves upstairs where we get introduced for the first time to Mia Goth, once again, who's playing Pearl, but the much younger Pearl this time. And she's standing in front of like this full length mirror, and then she just starts like the lights all go out, and then you hear like the sound of a spotlight coming on, and then she just starts dancing, and I was like, all right. And for some reason, I forgot that Pearl in X was a dancer. Like, I forgot that was a part of her character. So I was like, oh, she's just like, for some reason I thought this movie was also going to be about making porn. Like, I was like, oh man, she's
Well,
gonna
there's kind of some of that in there.
there, yeah, I mean, there's that in there, but anyway, yeah, she's dancing around in her room, and then all of a sudden she gets brought out of her fantasy when at first I'm just like, oh, it's just some German lady, but it ends up being her mom who busts in and is like, did I tell you you could wear my dresses and shit? And Pearl's like, I just wanted to dance, mom. And the mom's like, go feed the chickens, bitch, and kicks her out of the kicks her out of the house. Uh, she goes into the barn talking to cows and shit, and then the worst thing in the movie happens, where she puts on this whole show for the cows, dancing, singing, and stuff, right? And then Mr. Goose comes in. He's like, I want to see the show too, you know? And she's like, no show for you, Mr. Goose. And she just kills him with a pitchfork. I couldn't believe it. Like, he just showed up, wanted to see the dance. I was so mad.
Yeah, it was a weird, like, it's probably my least favorite part of the movie. I understand why they did it, but like, it just didn't make any sense. But there's a weird line later on that like, I don't know. I think it's supposed to be like a thing, but anyway.
Okay.
Because later on, she's like, when she's talking to the movie theater guy, she's like, we used to have a lot more animals,
Yeah.
but they died or
They
something.
all
And I'm like,
died, yeah.
but I don't, did they die because just, no money to feed them, or
No,
is
I
this
think
a Mr.
she
Goose
killed them.
scenario?
Yeah. Yeah, so she takes the Mr. Goose on the pitchfork and goes out to the lake that, once again, we were acquainted with in the last movie, and calls out, I think the alligator's name is Reba or something.
It's like Theba. Theba.
Yeah. It's
I,
named after, like, like an actress from this time. But anyway, she calls the alligator's name, and here comes the alligator swimming over. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this isn't the same alligator from X. But I think this is just establishing how long she's been using this method of, disposal of bodies and stuff. But she calls the alligator over, and the alligator swims over, and then it jumps up and grabs Mr. Goose, and we get a freeze frame and a title card as the alligator jumps up and grabs it, which I thought was cool.
it might be the same gator, just because I think their life spans are like crazy long.
Yeah, well, I guess that X, because I keep thinking, oh, 2022, but X was based in the 70s,
Yeah,
so it's
so
not as
years.
long, but still. That night, it's dinner time, and the mom is like, "Go get your dad for dinner," and she goes and gets him, and he has like Stephen Hawking's disease, where he's like in a chair and he can't move and shit. Um, did they ever specify what disease he had?
I don't know, but I know this was made during COVID. So like that whole like scare thing, I was like, ooh, like
Yeah, well, there's a lot of Spanish flu stuff going on here, where everyone's wearing masks in town and stuff. It's very much like, oh no, this is too close to home.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, that dude was fucked. I
Yeah,
don't know. like I
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Like, I want to say it's not polio, because polio just like makes you not be able to walk, right?
Yeah,
No.
you can still talk and
Yeah, I think you can still. Yeah, this guy can't, like I said, Stephen Hawking, where he's just like lumped the saliva coming off.
it's influenza was the 1918 pandemic was influenza,
Hmm.
but I'm not seeing something about the avian
Yeah.
flu.
Anyway, yeah, he's real fucked up. Uh, and so she brings him to dinner. She has to like spoon feed him and shit. She has to take, she can't eat her dinner first. She tries to, and the mom's like, feed your father, you know. So she has to spoon feed him. After dinner, She's helping clean up, and she finds a newspaper that says that the Allied forces have taken France. And she's like, oh man, this could mean that it's the end of the war. And she wants to keep reading more of it, but her mom is like, enough. I don't want to hear about any more dead Germans today, you know? And so she has to stop, reading the magazine or the newspaper. And then we find out that the reason she's so invested in it is because she goes to her room and she pulls out some letters, and it turns out that she's already married to Howard at this point, and he is serving. He's in the army. He's at war right now, so that's why she would be interested in the war wrapping up. The next day, Pearl has to go into town to pick up her dad's medicine. And this is like the first time everyone's wearing masks in here, and the mom is like, stay away from people, don't talk to anybody, you know. She goes and picks up the medicine, but then before she leaves, she goes to see a movie. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but does she start sipping the medicine in the movie theater?
Yeah, she takes like a big swig, but they show the medicine. And it's
I thought
like
it said morphine, yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, ooh.
She's
but
getting
at the same
fucked
time,
up.
like, I don't know.
Anyway, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, she watches a really bad 1918 fucking dance recital movie. And of course she's like, by golly, that's the best thing I ever seen. That's how she talks in this movie. So yeah, she watches this movie, sips on her dad's medicine, and then the movie gets done. She goes in like the alley next to the theater, and as she's out here reading, like, she's just what is it? Not the God, what's the name? The script, not the script. What is it like if you go to a play and they hand it out?
Fucking. If you hadn't asked me, like, the play card, but I don't know the name of it.
Yeah.
I used to buy the baseball games all the time. They're like $5.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember the name of it. Don't drink, kids. Don't drink.
Yeah. Anyway, y'all know what we're talking about. And she's reading it about the movie she just saw, about who was in it and all this shit. And as she does this, this guy comes out of this door next to her. And he's like, hey, you sure are pretty, you know? And she, like, doesn't answer him. And then he's like, you want a cigarette? And I think she mentions how she's married here. But he's like, oh, you know, that's all right. I'm just offering you a cigarette, you know? And so then he's like, did you like the movie? And she's like, yeah, I love the movie. I want to be a dancer one day. And he's like, well, you sure are pretty enough, you know? And I was like, oh, man, this guy's smooth. And then he tells her that he's the projectionist for the movie theater. And he offers to let her come in and watch the second show free of admission. But she's like, oh, no, I have to get back to the farm. And so he's like, all right, well, if you ever want to come watch a movie, just knock on this door. I'm always here, you know? So she's like, cool. See you later. Or no, I'm sorry. Before they leave, though, he's like, oh, hold on. I'll give you a present. And then he goes and takes the film that she just watched and cuts out a frame from it and gives it to her. First off, I don't know what she would do with this frame. Like, she just has this piece of film now.
Does it ever come back into the...
No, all it is meant to give her an excuse to go fuck that scarecrow in a couple minutes.
That's because, like, I was... Like, I remember it, like, you know, I watched the movie, obviously, but I was like, wait, that never came back up.
No.
Like, at all.
Yeah.
Like, the mom doesn't find it or not, like...
No. Yeah, and then the dude's like, oh, it's okay, I'll just tape the film together, no one will notice it's missing. I was like, what a terrible fucking projection is. He's just giving out frames of a movie. I like to imagine for every girl he's hit on like this, you go watch the movie and it's just like hundreds of missing frames.
It's 12 minutes. It's supposed to be like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, and this might be a disconnect from, you know, the times or whatever, but that guy acted like a projectionist was a really important job. And
yeah,
I can tell you right now, the 14-year-olds of the movie theater who do it aren't that
Well, back
prestigious.
then it probably was like a whole like bunch of steps you had to learn how to do, and it was probably a lot more complicated than
Yeah,
you
like
know.
people died showing movies. Like they got
Yeah, it caught on
unreal.
fire.
Yeah. So, but he was like, "I'm a projectionist," and I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
he's dressed up like in a suit and shit.
yeah, well, yeah." And I was like, "What is this? Like
Yeah,
3-piece suit is all looking all dapper and stuff." I was like, "All right."
yeah, he's trying to dap her. Am I right? Um, so yeah, so she leaves and she's riding home on her bike, and like this gust of wind hits the film frame that's in like the pocket of her overalls, and it goes flying out into like this cornfield. So she's like, "Oh no!" And so she gets off and she goes walking in through the cornfield, where eventually she comes into like this middle section where there's a scarecrow sitting there, and she's looking up at him, and she climbs up the pole, and she gets like right in his face, and she's like, "Can I have this dance?" And then she pulls him off and just starts dancing with this scarecrow. And I was like, all right. And then she starts making out with him, like heavy making out, like tongue and stuff on the. I don't know what the scarecrow head was made out of at this time. But she's making out with him. And when she finally like pulls back, she sees the face of the projectionist, and she like yells at him. She's like, "I'm married." And then immediately she's like, "Ah, oh, never mind," and she just starts riding the scarecrow.
Yeah, it's really like I expected like a corn cob or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
again. Oh, sorry, I hit my mic. X is it's a movie about porn films, like
Yeah,
X-rated film. So I expected a lot more raunchiness, but they really kept to like the 1920s kind of see someone's ankle type deal or
yeah,
whatever. So,
yeah.
but it was still pretty hot. I was like, "Ooh, it's getting hot in my room."
um,
But she had the hat on and everything.
yeah, she did. She steals this scarecrow's top hat, and she wears it a couple times for the movie, but it never really like. I wanted her to wear it more. I liked it. Um, so she leaves the scarecrow behind in the field, and she goes back home. And as soon as she gets back home, the mom is like, "Yeah, go change your dad. He shit on himself." Uh, so she goes to change him, and this I thought was weird, and maybe this is just a time difference thing because nowadays I feel like it's weird, but maybe back 1918 it wasn't. But she cleans her dad, but then she's taking a bath herself, and like she's turned the bath or her dad to be like looking directly at her while she's in the bath, like
Yeah,
you
like
know.
watching her, and I was like, "This is creepy as shit, guys."
Yeah, I
Like,
was like, is this gonna go a weird like I don't know. But then she's talking to him while she's in the bath, and this is our first real instance of her like showing any of these feelings toward a person, where she's talking to him and then like her voice gets real low and sinister kinda, and she's like, "Are you even still in there anymore?" And she starts like poking his face, and then she puts her hand on his throat, and like you see her squeeze a little bit, and the dad breathes a little heavier, but then she lets go, and so you're like, oh, something's up with her already. Like I was expecting it to be more of like she goes crazy over time, but this movie seemed to be like it started off and she was already crazy, like it was just instantly.
yeah, I
um
mean, yeah, it's really weird because you're waiting for the thing to happen, and to
yeah,
where you're like, "Oh, here we go,"
and I
but
guess there is that, but also like there's an event that really kicks it off, but also like she was already crazy
yeah, her mom even talks about it later.
yeah,
She's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Ooh."
yeah. So that night at dinner, the mom confronts Pearl, saying that she counted up the money that Pearl brought back, and there was 8 cents that was left unaccounted for. Pearl says, "Oh, I bought some candy for the ride home," and so the mom is like, "Bet that'll be your dinner. You don't get to eat any of this shit." Um, and so she's like, "You can eat some stuff. You can eat whatever's left in the morning, but you don't get any of this since you decided to spend my money on that stuff. So Pearl goes up to her bedroom all sad and shit, and she prays to God to make her the biggest star ever, so she can leave this farm behind. And then as she lays in bed, we see a shooting star go by, and you were like, "Oh, it's gonna be her wish." Um, the next day, oh god, I burped. The next day, they get some visitors, and it ends up being Howard's sister and Howard's mother. And Howard's mother is here, and she brought this roasted pig. They were dropping off to people, and they figure, they're talking about, oh, it's been so lonely with this bug going around. We're going off and dropping off pigs to everybody.
Low key, that pig looked delicious though.
It did.
And I was like, I'm fat. I need to stop.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was like, what am I having for dinner? Like,
yeah. Do I have time to go cook a pig?
Yeah, it takes a turn later to where I went, well, not as hungry.
Yeah. So Howard's mom is trying to give Pearl's mom the pig. As she's doing that, Howard's sister is talking to Pearl and telling her how this church group is going around putting together a dance troupe. And they're coming here for auditions or whatever, and how they should both go and audition. And they're like, yeah, we'll both go. And as that's happening, we then go back to the two moms, and Pearl's mom is saying how she won't take the pig and how they don't take charity and handouts and stuff. So once again, a very, just a stubborn lady this is. Yeah, so this is also when I wrote down, I remember the first movie, Old Pearl, talking about how she was talking to Howard, and she was like, you know how I feel about blondes. And as soon as I saw the sister, who was very blonde and blue eyes and stuff, I was like, uh-oh, that's probably going to be a callback to X coming up. So that night, Pearl sneaks out of the house with a dress she stole from her mom, and the top hat that she stole from the Scarecrow. And I thought she was going to the audition here, but it ends up being she was just going to talk to the projectionist dude. Like, this wasn't, like, spoiler, this isn't even when they bang. This is just like she went to talk to him. Did she want to just go see a movie or something? Like,
he said something about how it was admirable that she was taking care of her family, but she needed to live her own life.
yeah.
So going to tell him that she was going to pursue her own life or whatever. And I think if he would have, like, pressed the issue, he could have boned.
Yeah.
But
Well, I thought she was going there because she gets there and she's talking about how she's going to audition for this dance troupe and how she's never really danced in front of anyone. So I was expecting her to start dancing for this guy, but she doesn't. Instead, he's like, why don't we watch a movie? What do you want to watch? And she's like, oh, let's watch the movie that I already saw that you gave me a frame out of. And he's like, nah, you already seen that. How about I show you this movie that I got from France no one's ever seen? And he puts it on. And very quickly we realize that this is a very old vintage porn movie that apparently is real. It's from 1915. I don't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's a real porno. To be fair, I read there has been some arguments about its validity. I don't know.
yeah.
Anyway, because it surfaced in 1970 apparently, and so some people think it might have just been made to look older. But either way, he's showing her this porn movie, and he's like, "Yeah, look at that," and you can see Pearl's getting like all hot and bothered and shit. And yeah, this is when he starts telling her, "You need to live your life while you're young, and don't be afraid to do what you want to do." And Pearl goes, I can't because I have to look after my mom and dad. If only they would just die. And the dude goes, what? And Pearl goes, what? Oh. and instantly she's like, I didn't say anything,
It's one of our jokes, like, time. Like, it's pretty crazy that it made it a movie, but, So it's like, yeah, me too. What? No. but it's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, a Chick-fil-A sandwich. We'll see if I can keep that down. That's what you eat when you're sick, right?
Yeah, yeah. Not really because it's like loaded in butter and grease and everything.
Ah. Anyway. Um all right, so that happens. And then the very next day, she leaves there, nothing happens. The very next day, she takes her dad outside in his wheelchair and just wheels him over to the dock where the alligator is. And I was like, oh, this isn't good, you know? Uh, and then she gets him on the dock and then she calls for the alligator. And I was like, oh, this really ain't good. Um, and she starts telling her dad, she's like, I'm leaving here soon. And, I hate to feel like I'm abandoning you. And slowly she's like pushing him closer and closer to the edge. And right before it can get to where she's going to push him in, the mom shows up. And I was like, hey, bring him back inside. He shouldn't be out here. So the mom takes the dad away. And then we get this really weird moment where Pearl goes and finds like an alligator egg. And
Nest, but yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, it's a whole nest, but she singles out one specifically to take back and crush in her hand. And as she crushes it, we get a shot of presumably Howard, because he looks to be wearing the same uniform that we see Howard wearing later, blowing up simultaneously as that happens. And I've seen some people say that's her kind of wishing that he would just step on a mine or something, a war, because she would feel guilty about everything she's planning on doing. But either way, I was like, all right, that's kind of weird. Yeah, it was whatever. That night at dinner, shit hits the fan. Where they're eating dinner, and then mom slowly pulls out the program for the movie.
Program.
Yeah,
That was the word that we couldn't figure out.
Yeah. She pulls it out, and she's like, "You fucking went and saw a movie. You were around all those people." And she has a thing here where she's talking about, like the last thing we need is for people thinking that we went and spread a sickness and stuff. And you kind of get, because, like, she's a German immigrant, and, they're at war with Germany right now. So you can imagine animosity towards German people is, high, or, so you can kind of get why she wants to keep to herself. But she's yelling at Pearl, and she's telling her that she needs to go, like, live in the barn until they know she's not sick. But Pearl is like, it's freezing out there. And she's like, I don't care. This is what's best for the family. And then Pearl tells her that there's a dance audition tomorrow for this church group, and she's going to audition. And Mom's like, no, you aren't. And Pearl's like, yes, I am. And she's like, I need to know if I'm good enough to do this. If they say no, then I'll come back here and I'll work on the farm, and I'll never, argue again. And I'll accept that this is where I'm meant to be and shit. But that's all I want to do. And she's like, you don't know what I'm capable of. And the mom's like, yes, I do. And she's like, I see you when you don't think anyone else sees you, what you do to those animals and shit. And I was like, oh no, the mom knows about Mr. Goose.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
Does Pearl's request seem that unreasonable?
No.
Like, she's like, if I go and I don't make it, then it is what it is, and I'll come back and be a farm person. So it's like, I feel bad for her, right? Even though everything's telling me, hey, this person's a crazy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it sounds completely reasonable. Like, yeah, just let her go to the audition, like.
Yeah,
what's
well,
the problem?
You wonder how much of this movie could have been avoided if she just had a nice mom. If the mom was just nice to her.
But if you think about it, like this lady's been through hell. I mean, she goes on to it here. She's like, I was never meant to be a mom. I was meant to be a
Yeah.
wife. And she was like, my life's been hard. Everything's on me. I have to make sure that, we have food and a
Yeah.
roof, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I get why, things are hard, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. My favorite part is in the middle of her tirade, she picks up a knife and goes over to the dad, and she's like, how about I just kill him for you? That way you wouldn't have to do it yourself. And the look on the dad's face is like, how did I get stuck with these two crazy bitches who are just, the one's trying to feed me to an alligator. This one's got, this poor guy can't do anything. He's just stuck here in this chair. Yeah, so the mom eventually cracks at this. And she's like, you make me sick. Every time I look at you, you make me sick. And she's like, you need to go live somewhere else. She's kicking her out. And she's like, I don't know what else you could possibly want from me. And Pearl goes, I just don't want to end up like you. And that's the breaking point where the mom goes over and slaps Pearl. And then Pearl yells at her and slaps her back. And they get into a fight. Rolling around until eventually the mom brushes up against the fireplace and her skirt catches on fire and she burns up and gets all nice and toasty.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking fast, so.
Yeah, surprisingly fast, because Pearl grabs like a pot of corn on the cobs that were in water and throws it on her.
Boiling water, yeah.
Yeah. And throws it on her, but she's like Harvey Dent toasted at this point already. Like, surprisingly how bad she is. And so Pearl's like, oh man, that sucks. Let me drag you down in the basement. And she just drags her down in the basement, kicks her down there. And she goes up and she tells her dad sorry. And then she runs away and she goes to town and knocks on the door of the theater guy. And as soon as he opens up the door, she starts making out with him. And we cut to black. They wake up the next morning. They had banged and shit. And she wakes up like all startled and she's getting dressed. I thought she was going to make a run for it. But it ended up being that she's like, oh no, I need to go practice for my dance. It's coming up, So he's like, all right, well, let me drive you home. First off, rookie mistake, right? She lets this guy not only drive her home, but then invites him inside into the murder scene that she just created earlier. So he gets there, and as he's walking in, the first thing he notices is the pig that Howard's mom brought is still sitting on the porch, and it's like covered in maggots and stuff. He goes inside, she introduces him to her dad, and it's like this really awkward scene where she's like, this is my dad, and he's like, he's been sitting at the dinner table all night, like just sad and shit. And
the boyfriend or movie guy, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
He's like wearing the top hat. He's like, oh.
Yeah. And so she's like, here's my dad. Let's go upstairs to my bedroom. and she just starts to try to bang him. And you can tell he's not really in the mood, but he's like, all right, I'll go with it for a little bit. But then he keeps hearing these banging sound. And he's like, what is that? We should go check on that. And Pearl's like, no, it's fine. We don't need to worry about that. And he's like, yeah, what if it's your dad? What the fuck is wrong with you? And she's like, what? Nothing, So he goes downstairs and he sees the corn lying on the ground from the night before. And you're like, oh, he's piecing together the parts. What?
Yeah, he's an ex-soldier too. So like
yeah,
I'm guessing he went to, fight in the war and then came back, whatever. But so he's like starting to get like, wait a minute, something's a little fishy. So.
And when he picks up the corn, he stands back up and Pearl's standing behind him, and she goes, all right, it was our dog. He made a mess at dinner yesterday, so I locked him up in the basement and shit. And he's like, all right, I guess that checks out. Then she takes him in the barn and shows him all the animals and is telling them their names and stuff. And the guy's like, oh, what's your dog's name? And she's like, we don't have a dog. And I was like, you literally just made this lie 5 minutes ago. You couldn't remember that? So he's
I think it shows like how wholesome and like, like non-lying or whatever. I don't know the words, but like how naive this girl is, you know,
Yeah,
like she's just some farm kid who doesn't know no better, you know.
I guess. So as soon as as soon as she's like, oh yeah, no, I don't have a dog. He's like, right. Well, I'm gonna head out now, and she starts freaking out on him, and she's like, tell me what I did. Why are you going cold on me? You know, and he's like, listen, Pearl, you're scaring me. I'm leaving. So he goes back to his car, but before he can leave, Pearl grabs the pitchfork that she used to kill Mr. Goose earlier and goes and runs over to him and stabs him in the chest. He does manage to like put the car in gear though, so he's it's the slowest like getaway as he's like dying. And eventually it comes to a stop, and she comes and pulls him out of the car and then stabs him through the face with the pitchfork. But I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like how it looked. Like it was just like the middle prong goes through his mouth. Like you don't really see anything, you know.
Yeah, it was a little.
It left things to be desired on that kill. Uh, yeah. So anyway, then she goes back inside, and we see that it was her mom who's still alive, who's crawled up the stairs and was trying to get out. Who was making that noise? So she just kicks her down the fucking stairs. She's like, get down there, you know? So then she goes about her day as usual. She's cleaning up everything. She cleans up her dad and stuff. And he's just all terrified looking. Pearl then gets dressed up in this bright red dress that she stole from her mom. And she dresses her dad up in this suit. And she goes over to him and she tells him that he's loved. And she knows that he'll be watching over her from heaven and stuff. And then she proceeds to smother him to death with a pillow and kill the poor dad, get him out of this movie. And then,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure, like, I don't know. I guess it all depends on where you stand on like mercy killings, right? But like, if anyone in the it was him, right? The guy seemed just miserable. So,
mm-hmm.
but again, my weird, you know.
Yeah. Before she goes to her audition, she pushes the dude's body and his car into the swamp or the lake, and I'm pretty sure that we saw the bumper of that car in X when Kid Cudi was out there in the swamp at night with the dad looking for him or looking for Pearl.
Just dick swinging, right?
Yeah,
Like, if I remember right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
I don't remember, like, to be honest, but
wow.
it wouldn't be surprising, you know?
Yeah. I know that they saw the bumper of some car, but it might have just been a different car, you know? So yeah, Pearl goes to her audition. She meets up with Howard's sister. Howard's sister tells her that there's a rumor that they're only taking one girl per town. And Pearl is like, it has to be me. And the sister is like, you meant like if it's not me, then I'm glad it's you, right? And Pearl is like, it has to be me. And the woman's like, oh, okay, you know? And so then what is it? The sister's too nervous, so she lets Pearl switch spots with her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Well,
so they're only taking one girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the other girl goes first and she gets it, they would send everybody home.
Yeah.
And now that Pearl's gone full psycho and she's done the double, it has to be me. It has to be me, like, type thing. She's like, you can go first.
Yeah.
So
it might be.
I don't know. That might be giving more credit to that lady than she deserved.
So yeah, finally it's Pearl's time to audition, and she goes in, and it like time slows down, and it's all quiet and stuff. And then eventually she starts tap dancing around and stuff, and they're playing music. And then there's this whole like fantasy sequence where they pull the curtain back, and all of a sudden she's in like a war zone, and these women dressed up as soldiers come out and are dancing with her. And there's fireworks and bombs going off and stuff. And she dances for about a minute or two and then stops, and she's sitting there breathing all heavy. And then the people go, thank you, but it's going to be a no. And I was like, uh-oh, that's not good, you know? And so she's like, what? But that's the best dancing I've ever done. And they go, yeah, it was really good, but we already have a bunch of people like you in the troupe. We're looking for someone more American, like blonde and stuff. And I was like, uh-oh, this really ain't good. Um, and then also during this, we get some like American Werewolf in London stuff where she looks out and the judges have turned into all the people she's killed, uh, which I thought was cool. Eventually she starts screaming and she's like, I'm a star and stuff. And she's like, you have to help me. And they physically have to drag her out of the theater. Um, Once again, another murder rookie mistake. Howard's sister comes up to her and is like, hey, I should take you home. And she lets her take her home and come inside with her in the murder scene. Like, stop doing this. They get in here. And Howard's sister is like, oh, it seems like you have some stuff you want to talk about. Why don't you talk to Howard about it?
Oh, well, you skipped the best line in the whole movie.
Do I?
Yeah, I was just, is that our pig?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we see the pig even more decayed. And yeah.
Sorry.
And so she's like, oh, well, Howard's not here. I can't talk to him. And so she's like, well, pretend I'm Howard. Talk to me, And that kicks off about an 8-minute long monologue that Pearl has where she's talking about how she handpicked Howard to marry because she knew that he had this other rich family that they could go and live with, and she hid her real self from him, and it worked like a charm. And, then they went to go live with her family, but then Howard ended up wanting to come and live back on the farm, and she hated him for it. And she was pregnant with his kid at some point, but she had like a miscarriage, and suppose she was happy when it died. She hated how it felt having it grow inside of her. She admits to all the murders she's done. She admits to, sleeping with the projectionist dude. And just going on and on. And finally it stops. And
she also was like, I killed those animals, but I really liked it.
Yeah.
Not like when I killed those people.
Yeah.
That I had to do. And all that. And it's like, it's like, it is a monologue. And it is the most interesting thing that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I was like riveted. I was like, holy shit. I was like, Jesus.
So she gets done. And then the camera slowly pans over to Howard's sister. And she's like, okay, well, I should get going now. And she starts to leave, and she's almost out the door. But before she gets there, Pearl is like, hey, I'm happy that you got the part in the dance troupe. And the lady's like, but I didn't get the part in the dance troupe. And Pearl's like, don't lie to me. I'm happy. You're trying to protect my feelings, but I'm happy that you got it. And she says she didn't once again, but Pearl stops her. And she's like, I know you did, just, it's okay. And so finally the girl's like, all right, I did get it. I hope you can come watch us dance somewhere, And then Pearl is like, yeah, you always get what you fucking want, And so the girl's like, all right, I'm leaving. And we get this really cool, like, wide shot of the girl backing out of the house. And then we see Pearl slowly following her out the door and just picking up the axe sitting propped up against the house. She chases after her with the axe. The lady, of course, falls and trips over, and that gives Pearl enough time to catch up. And I'll give this lady credit. She takes like 2 or 3 chops to the back before she falls down again. And then, yeah, Pearl stands over her and swings down the axe onto the lady's face and kills her. After that, she goes down into the basement to find the mom's dead body, and she snuggles up to it. And then we hear the mom singing her like this lullaby. And this is when we get the cool split screening like effect that they have going on.
Yeah, it is. It's the next level. And
we see her chopping up Howard's sister's body, which looks surprisingly realistic. Like how they...
The guy in the car. I was like...
And she's feeding her body parts to the alligators. She's feeding other parts to the other animals. And then she dresses the mom and dad up all nice. She brushes the mom's hair, and we see pieces of scalp like coming off. Um, and then she dresses them up all nice, and then puts them at the table and serves them the pig that's still rotted at this point with maggots everywhere. And she's like, "It's dinner time." And then we cut to black, and when we come back up, we get Howard arriving on an army bus, getting dropped off, coming back home, and he runs in and he's like, "Pearl, I'm home." And he's greeted with the scene of the mom and the dad at the table and all that shit going on. And then he turns to look, and Pearl is standing there, and she's holding a picture of something. It's like this green, gross looking thing. I don't know what it was. And she's like, "I'm so happy you're home." And then for the next 2 minutes, it's just her smiling and like straining her face and crying as the credits roll over her face. It's a very, like, it's creepier the longer it goes on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where she's smiling and then she starts crying, but she doesn't. Her face doesn't change.
Yeah.
And you're like, is she actually happy or sad, or
Yeah.
you don't know, and you're like,
Yeah, supposedly that was just like a on the day, like he just didn't yell cut. And so apparently you can see her like shaking her head like, "Come on." Like, yeah. And so she just went with it, and so you can see her getting more and more strained over time. But yeah, that's it. That's the end of Pearl. This movie had a budget of $1 million, made a box office of $9.4 million. Let's do best of, worst of for Pearl. My best of, like I said earlier, is going to be the whole split screen mirrored effect montage we get with the mom singing and stuff. I really liked it. It was the coolest part of the movie to me. Worst part, honestly, it's the scarecrow dancing and stuff. I the whole time I was like, all right, let's end this now. Let's get on to something else. Yeah, I don't like it at all. So there you go. Tyler, what's your best of, worst of?
this is gonna be weird, but my best of is after the audition when it ends and she's seeing the dead people, and her mom's like, "Nope, sorry," and she like marks the paper, or whatever, and you see the realization in the lady's face that like her mom was right, and like not every story is a happy ending, and
Uh-huh.
she should have been happy with what she had, blah blah blah. And like you could just look at her whole face the whole time, and it's like, because the end of the dance she's all smiling because it's the best dancing she's ever done, and then like the whole transition from that to just completely falling apart.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. So, and if I had to peg one scene, is when she looks up and she's been crying, and she just has like the snot running down her face and stuff. And I was like, because up to this point, everything's been like this, like picturesque,
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz, so to speak, type thing.
Yeah.
And then you get to that, and you're like, oh shit, it's real. This is real life. I mean, it's still a movie, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really good. I mean, that ending is the best, right? After the monologue to the
Yeah.
end.
It was a real good
That's
ending.
like, yeah. But that was too easy to pick, so I didn't want to just be like, "Hey, the ending's good."
Uh-huh.
The worst part is just the mom, and I don't know if it's just. I mean, she's made to be that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then the dad doing nothing, but
Well, I mean, to be fair, he really couldn't do anything.
I don't know. It's weird because the first one had the Texas Chainsaw vibe to it, like
Yeah. Yeah.
heavily, and this one towards the end was going into that, right? Like
Yeah.
this sounds or seems to be a better origin story to Texas Chainsaw Massacre than Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Like this makes more sense because in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're just this wild inbred family who's always,
Mm-hmm.
just the way they've always been. So you never really get an origin story.
Yeah.
So, and Elmer T. Lee's dead, so you're not really going to get like a what happened to his parents that they're this way, and or whatever. So I just love the mental breakdown or psychotic break or whatever of it. So
Yeah. All right.
you needed the movie theater guy though.
No, I mean he's just yeah, he's just there to be her ticket. She's constantly just looking for a ticket out of this farm life, and he had promised her he would take her to Europe, and
Yeah, but like I think without him, like if she would have just been like, "Oh, I was unfaithful," and she's referring to the scarecrow, it'd show how much more like deprived or
yeah,
out of touch with reality she is. I don't know.
no,
But then you're like, "Oh no, she's just a whore." Okay, gotcha.
yeah,
When it kind of took away from her a little bit, but like I said, it's still a real good movie. Just that beginning is just long to get through.
mm-hmm,
Weird thing, and I don't know if this is just me because you have weird tastes in women like me. First movie, she was hot as hell. Like, she was my background on my computer for like, months. This movie, I didn't get any kind of like, I don't know. She wasn't hot in
you
this. Like, I wasn't.
you were all into her. I didn't. There was nothing like she doesn't have any eyebrows. Like, I don't know. There's nothing. Like she doesn't look bad, but there's nothing. Yeah.
I get what I'm trying to say is in the first in X, she was highly sexualized.
Yeah.
This movie, I didn't get that at all. I didn't get, hey, she's like a sex symbol, hot chick or whatever.
Uh huh.
She was just a regular farm lady on a farm. Like
Yeah.
there was no like, I don't know. And I mean, maybe that speaks volumes about her acting.
Uh huh.
And one, she could be like, a literal, adult film movie star. And in this one, you don't get that. You just get farm girl. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Hey, is it good when you take your temperature and your temperature is 96.6?
Not bad.
Well, it's 2 degrees under what it should be, right?
Yeah, but just check the other side.
Oh yeah.
Because you're shooting your forehead or temple or what are you doing?
Forehead.
Oh. Yeah, you're supposed to take like 3 readings and then do the average of the 3.
Anyway. All right, that's the end of Pearl. We're gonna get
Is
out of
there
here
no
for a.
third movie?
There's a third movie that's supposed to be called like Maxine with 3 X's in the middle, and that'll be, Mia Goth's character from X finishing up that whole story. Um,
Yeah, but there's so many questions. Like, because in X, Pearl is like 70, right? Maybe
yeah.
65 or whatever. So what happens in those 50 years? Because they don't have a family.
No, well, also, like, how does Howard accept everything that's happened? Like his sister's dead. Wouldn't like Howard's mom notice at some point, like, hey, what's going on?
I want to say they keep killing. Isn't there a scene in X where it's like Texas Chainsaw where they have a bunch of cars in the lake and everything?
Yeah.
So there's like another whole horror movie there, but how do you do a prequel that's a sequel to a prequel? Like,
I don't
how do you do
know.
a sequel to a movie that's a prequel before?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I have a feeling they'll keep churning these out. So
Yeah.
the director's what, T.I. West or something?
Ty West. Yeah.
I don't know what else he's done. Has he done anything other than these 2 films?
Yeah. Can't remember what it was. Hold on. There's something else we've watched, I'm pretty sure. Oh. Well, but he directed like bits in VHS. He also directed that Your Next movie. Or no, he was just in that, sorry. Anyway. Alright, let's get out of here before I puke up everywhere. I can feel it coming.
Really?
yeah, the Chick-fil-A didn't sit well.
I told
Well,
you.
yeah. Well, I had that feeling where I couldn't tell if I was really hungry because I haven't eaten anything or if it was stomach messed up. Guess it was stomach messed up. So anyway, thanks for listening. Next week, watching a movie called The Hatching that I saw a trailer of, where it looks like an evil goose hatches out of an egg and is killing people.
Oh Lord.
So look forward to that. And yeah, Tyler, you got anything to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, I might make another return if we watch that Batista movie.
Knock at the Cabin?
Yeah, I don't know if you've done it already.
No, I want to watch it.
So, stay
Hey,
tuned.
yeah, mark it down.
So I'm so sorry he has to go behind the Gosling or whatever the fuck you picked.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
So, but I don't know. We'll squeeze it in.
yeah. All right. Thanks for
See
watching.
you.
Bye.
I had to work overnight this week, so like I'm so far. Like, tell you this disgusting story. You might want to record,
We are recording.
but I don't know how I feel about this. So I'm sitting there and I'm driving home right from work, and it's like 5:30 in the morning. I had what did I eat? I had some DoorDash. I don't remember what it was though. It was Wendy's. So I had like the bourbon double baconator thing,
Uh-huh.
and it was not sitting well in the old stomach. And then at like 5:30, I was like, well, I supposed to get off at 7. I didn't take a lunch.
Yeah.
So if I leave an hour early, it's no big deal. But I was like, I'd rather, shit my house than, this random bathroom.
Uh-huh.
So I'm heading home, right? And I see Parker's, and I'm like, all right, you know where Parker's is, and
Yeah.
the majority of other people won't. But I was like, I can make it. I turned down Folly Road. I was like, I cannot make it. So I turned down like a dirt road, and I'll be like shitting on the side of the woods. And I was like, all right, well now I need some toilet paper. I was like, I had no paper towels. I had nothing.
Uh-huh.
So I just drove home all shitty ass for like 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
it was the worst feeling in my life.
Yeah. Can I add on to that? I shit my pants today.
Why? Just cause or what?
I was laying there and like bubble gut, and then like a fart came out, and then it was very quickly like, oh man, that's lava. But it was lava to that the clench didn't help, and I was like, oh, and I went and I was shitting, and I was like, well, maybe it didn't shit myself, and I looked, and it was like, yeah, there was shit in my, it was
Like change the sheets and everything, or no?
no, it didn't, no, it wasn't that much. It was like, it just
A
made,
squirt?
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
a squirt in my pants. Or technically it was just underwear, but either way, I was like, oh my god.
You're like, God damn, someone shit my pants.
So that's what shape we're both in. We're both shitty ass.
It's on the subject. No. So I've been getting like super into bourbon and stuff lately, and I've been drinking a little bit more. I had a couple drinks this day, and it may have went past responsibly.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting there and I'm taking a piss before I go to bed, right? And I had a fart. So I was like, bet. I was like, this is going to be epic, because you're.
Yeah.
And I let out like a raunchy, and I was like, oh, this is great. So I flushed the toilet, I turned around, and there's just a little turd laying on the floor. And I was like, what? But like, I'm in my bathroom, right? So like, I'm like, everything's fine, like, this also highlights the thing that, like when I'm home, I just wear basketball shorts, but I don't wear them like with underwear or whatever. I wear them as pajamas, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm a weirdo, and I hate when that one little drip gets in my shorts after I pee. So like, I'm peeing like a toddler in the scenario, right? Like, you gotta have the pants
I
down.
get, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, Mom was like, how did you shit on the floor? She's like, how did you pick it up? I was like, I grabbed it in my hand and put it in. Like,
yeah. I just like
and then I took a shower because I was like, what else is happening?
I just like that it came out unnoticed by you until you turned around.
No, this fart was clapping, bro. It was
Yeah.
like bourbon does
I
weird things.
imagine you turn around and you're like the videos of the cats when they turn around and the cucumber is on the
I was so confused. I was like, did the dog shit behind me? Like what? I was looking around.
and then you were like, "Oh no, it's
I'm the dog.
it
And
was
like,
me." You, oh.
yeah. I was like, it's like my whole life has changed. But
Oh
yeah, it's been an interesting couple weeks,
boy,
man.
yeah, I tell you.